Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another one of our fly fishing tutorials. And today, as you can see, we have a very special guest in Mr. Tim Flagler of Tightline Video. So Tim, we went fishing today.
If you could call it that.
We went fishing today, and we'll just give you a little background. Tim and I went to the Mad River, our namesake Spring Creek brown trout fishery right here in Ohio. It's about 50 miles west of the shop. And the idea was, Tim and I were on the phone a week and a half ago, and it was 71 degrees, sunny, water temp 54, and I really thought we were going to see Hendricksons.
So did I.
Yeah, and we found plenty of Hendrickson nymphs, but with basically, let's just go ahead and say frigid temperatures. I'm still trying to warm up my hands. Frigid temperatures, and I'm not kidding, gale force winds.
Yeah, like ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, we got to one spot, and the river was flowing this way, but there were waves. I've never seen that. I've been fishing that river for 40 plus years of my life. I have never seen standing waves moving up the river.
That was pretty crazy.
That was pretty crazy. So we kind of changed our plans, and we left the fiberglass 3-weight and 4-weight rods in the truck, and we switched over to what anybody should do on a day like that. And if you've got no bugs and you've got no dry fly activity,
Nymphing.
throw nymphs.
Yeah.
And Tim, as many of you may know or may not know, Tim is, I'm just going to go ahead and say, expert Euro nympher.
I wouldn't say expert.
Okay. All right.
Recreational Euro nympher. How about that?
Well, you're about 10 steps ahead of me. I'm an American nympher, and I use a bobber and a split shot and jig flies, and at least I use the jig fly. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little more modern. So we were going to try to do this from the river today and talk a little bit about Euro nymphing and the differences between nymphing the way I was with a bobber, a typical indicator rig, and the Euro. So we figured we'd come back here to the studio, and Tim can walk us through the basics of his Euro nymphing rig. So take it away, Tim.
All right, Brian. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, for many people, Euro nymphing is kind of a new thing,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of folks are sort of scared of it and a little leery of it, particularly guys like me that have been fishing for a long time.
Yeah, well,
and,
I'm one of them.
Yeah. And let's just say there's nothing new here, honestly. It's just refinement on things that we've been doing for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started nymphing, if you will, I used the tip of my fly line as my indicator. We didn't have floating indicators.
Right.
That's what I was looking at to detect a take. And if that thing moved, then I set the hook and went to there. And then we started seeing indicators in the 90s, floating indicators, little foam sticky things for a while, and then more advanced in cork and New Zealand wool. And so, but mainly through competitions in Europe, where a lot of these techniques and these refinements were developed, international competition, it started flooding back here into the States.
Mm-hmm.
And all it is taking that same idea, that the idea of being directly connected with your fly from the rod tip through the line down to the fly. So you're essentially moving your fly with the current. And so you're not relying on a floating indicator to move along the water surface. And everything has developed kind of around competition and these techniques that were developed in Europe, hence Euro nymphing, kind of as a collect-all. But things like tactile nymphing or dynamic nymphing, they all make sense. It's kind of the same idea. And so some of the refinements that have happened is one, we've gone to much, much thinner line. And the reason for this is the thinner line doesn't droop as much in the guides of your rod, as a heavy weight forward line would, for example. And so that every little bit of droop between the guides, you're out of contact with your flies.
Sure.
Okay. So first we start off that. This is by the way, it's a 10.5 foot 2-weight Euro nymphing rod. And very different than a lot of rods because, you just can't really substitute a 10-foot say 5-weight rod. And the reason is that the tips on these Euro nymphing rods are very, very soft. They're designed to flex a lot. And that flex carries well back into the blank. And the flex, it's like a shock absorber. It protects really delicate tippet.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for using delicate tippet is it's less surface area exposed to the water flowing, so it doesn't drag as much, and allows your flies to behave much more normally as they're going downstream. And it allows them to sink faster, which is yet another idea that comes from competition, is getting those flies down to where the fish are as quickly as possible.
Sure.
You know, if you're on a beat and it's a timed heat that you're going through, every single second counts. Win or lose based on how fast your flies get down cast after cast. Anyway, for my setup, I have this very, very light. It's level line. It's pretty nice feel. It's just like regular fly line. There are different ways to do this, to transition.
What's the diameter on that one? Do you know?
I don't know on this particular one.
I'm just
Very,
guessing.
very thin.
It's in the ballpark of 22 thousandths.
It comes down and it has a braided core in it. And this is a strange little rig. There are many ways you can do this. You could do a nail knot. You could, if you want to, a loop-to-loop connection. But the idea here is that it's the smoothest transition possible between the guides.
Okay.
Okay, so no clunk. And you need the braid core so you can shove this. This is 4X cider material. And this is where my rig kind of deviates from a lot of Euro nymphers. They won't do this. The only reason I'm using cider material here, and I have 10 feet of it,
Okay.
I'm not using it actually as cider. So this is not what I'm looking at when I'm trying to detect takes. Most all of this is back on the rod, and it's so I can see it on the rod. If I was using, say, clear fluorocarbon or lightly colored fluorocarbon, I'd lose it on the blank. And this stuff is so fine, it gets tip wrapped and things like that. I got you standing on my tip.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I think I'm entangled.
Yeah, it's so fine. So I can actually see it on the
A
blank.
lot of folks are using Maxima Chameleon.
Yeah, well,
Also.
yeah, it's a little stiffer. I prefer the 4X and fairly loose. It's not as easy to cast, but it just keeps the whole system very, very light, and I really feel like I'm in contact with the flies.
So for those that don't know, the cider material is it's a specific product. You can go on our website, and we have a full category where you'll find all of the Euro lines, leaders, materials. So the cider material, you're using it in 4X diameter, and it looks like this goes from yellow or chartreuse to orange,
Back to yellow.
back to yellow, back to orange. There's some of them that are even tricolored. I think they throw in a pink.
Pink, right? And
Yeah.
and I have them in. I actually have black cider material and bright white cider material, which have practical applications depending on the light. But again, I'm not really using this stuff to detect takes. So I have. I measure it. I know my wingspan is 5 feet, so I have 5 feet there, another 5 feet, and that's so 10 feet of this stuff. And the idea with the cider material, again, is just to go up the rod. And I know it's very hard to see. I come down to a tippet ring, and then I'll string up. This is 10 feet. I think I was using 5X today. I'm usually, it's 10 feet of 5X. I'm usually 6 or 7X. And just to keep that diameter really, really thin, allows the fly to sink really, really fast. And again, there's less surface area exposed to the current, so it doesn't get pushed around as much.
And it sinks faster.
Yeah, it just sinks real fast. But the way I detect takes is I'm going to have my fly, a little tangle here. I'm going to have my fly down here somewhere, right at the end of that 10 feet worth of tippet, okay? And depending on water depth, rather than using a cider material like that, I'll go down. Let's just say I want my cider to be right about there because of water depth. I use one of these markers, and I'm just going to take the marker and run it through here, like that. And so I built a sighter into that 10-foot section. So this is going to ride right above the water surface, about like that. If the water surface is where my finger is, any little movement, any straightening out, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, that could be sometimes it's the bottom, it goes like this or it rotates, but I'm watching this very, very closely. So what it is kind of a different setup, and this is going to be my little, it's a Euro jig, just a little weighted jig fly. And the water looks fairly shallow here in most spots.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being more than about 3 feet deep.
Correct.
And what I do is I have, it's going to sound really weird, I have 10 feet worth of 6X tippet on here.
Oh, Lord.
Fluorocarbon. And I'm just adjusting it a little, want a little more depth. But what I do, rather than using a floating indicator or a true sighter, I take this marker, and right about where I think, I'm estimating anyway, where I want my sighter to be, I just take the marker and run a fluorescent little piece. So this will be just above the water surface, and I'll be looking at the end of this and the way this curves to detect a take, and then the fly is down here. And what it does is makes it so I'm not cutting back on my tippet material. I can just take my fingers, strip this off if I want it to go a little higher, and I'm just adjusting that length, the depth that I want by where I have placed the mark. Really pretty simple. And that's how I detect takes. And I'll set the hook on that. So a very, very sensitive system. The advantage here is if I'm changing water depth, I don't have to cut off my tippet and either lengthen it, shorten, do whatever. I can take my fingers. Actually, I have a little solvent that I use sometimes, and strip this off, and then I can just move where this mark is, either up or down the line. And so I keep this piece of 10X or a 10-foot piece of 6X or 7X on there for a long period of time. Unless I get snagged or something like that, and break it off, and just move the wax up and down based on water depth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, first of all, what kind of marker is that? That looks...
I got it from Scientific Anglers, but...
okay.
Yeah. And it gets on your fingers. They look like I've been eating Cheetos most of the time.
So it says solid marker, and it's fluorescent solidified paint.
Yeah.
I have certainly seen these now. There's companies marketing them. I suppose Scientific Anglers is now marketing. I'm going to have to look into this and make sure that Mad River Outfitters has this, so that will...
Come in many different colors, bright pink and orange, yellow.
I typically see orange.
Yeah,
the best.
Orange is bright for me.
I like orange indicators. I like orange fly lines.
Yeah.
I see orange very well. So this will soon be in that category I mentioned on Mad River Outfitters. I'm sure there's a link down below us in the description of the video. So, well, that again, just to reiterate, that saves you, because if you're using cider material, then you may have to then adjust. What would you do? You would adjust the length of the tippet
coming after the cider.
After the cider, based on your water depth.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's not my idea, certainly. It comes, again, it's one of those things, and it's probably already out of date. How quickly these trends and from competition, and every competition that these guys go to, Team USA, the youth team, they learn something new from Europeans,
Sure.
or they come up with it on their own. And it's one of the wonderful things about those competitions is they really do share information. It's kind of surprising. International competition, they share a lot of information, which is just great.
Well, I mean, and we talked about this earlier today. Fly fishing really is, at the end of the day, for most of us, a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And we're all here to share. We're all here to learn and to get better at what we do, and the next time we go out to get even better. So, but that is a brilliant system, and you've given me some a little bit more confidence, and that's a fantastic rig. It's super easy. I don't have to have 16 different spools of monofilament to build or fluorocarbon to build a Euro nymphing leader.
Yeah.
So you're going the butt section is again how long?
I go 10 and 10. So
10 and 10.
10 feet of 4X cider material, 10 feet of whatever tippet material I'm using, 5, 6, 7, even 8X at times.
And that's a standard 2 millimeter tippet ring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice small one. I should say that if you're just getting started Euro nymphing, you don't have to go this far. I mean, we're taking ideas from international competition, okay? And we're not competing on an international level.
No.
We just want to catch a few more fish than the guy standing next to you, basically. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And so they're little baby steps that you can take. You don't have to buy a Euro rod, for example. You can use your 9-foot 5 weight, 8.5-foot 4 weight. Scientific Anglers, Rio, just about everybody makes, they call them shorties. And it's a short piece of this very, very thin line. And you just attach it to your weight forward line. Get yourself a standard Euro leader. Again, everybody's making them anywhere from 10 to 14 feet long. They have a built-in sighter, a tippet ring. You just add tippet and you're ready to go. And so you kind of, if you're just starting out Euro nymphing, you just take it as far as you want to go with it. And, there's no reason you need to instantly go out, and it doesn't require a $1,000 rod to start.
No, it does not. In fact, this rod you have here, I'll go ahead and mention the name. It's the Cortland Nymph, which are wildly popular. By the way, we sell the heck out of these rods, and they're not all that expensive.
No.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that this outfit you have here is. I mean, it's under $400, maybe under $300, something like that.
Little under $400.
Under $400.
Rod, reel, line, everything. Under $400, and that's in this day and age. That's a bargain.
That's a bargain.
It really is.
A couple of other things I want to talk about. So again, but eventually, if you got into this Euro nymphing, which I once people get into this, I mean, you've seen this. They go
hog wild.
They go Euro.
Yeah.
I mean, and having that specific rod that is a little bit longer and has that specific action with that super sensitive tip, allowing you to feel that monofilament and feel that fly as it's ticking is pretty important. I agree that you don't have to go out and run out and buy a brand new rod.
Yeah.
That you can take those baby steps, and then, like you said, you can get the shorty lines that you just loop onto your weight forward line. So you could switch back and forth between traditional fly fishing and Euro fly fishing.
Absolutely.
Without having to switch a reel or switch a spool or anything. So, but eventually, that Euro rod, and a lot of people, myself included, when you tell me you're fishing 6X, 7X tippet, it's like, wow, I'm kind of a saltwater and a bass guy.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that to me is crazy stuff. But the tip on this rod is going to just protect that 6X.
Yeah.
And also having that long of a piece of 6X, it's going to have a lot of stretch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's protection built into that whole system. And if you keep, I'm kind of nuts about how I have my drag set on this, and it's I know that in most conditions anyway, if I by chance have a really big fish on, and I'm using 8X, I know between the rod, the stretch of the line, and how I have the reel set, it will pretty much protect 8X.
Wow,
and that's
amazing.
Yeah, it's taken a while to get everything where it is that way, but
can you talk real quick about that connection that you have there between the fly line and the leader
and the cider material?
Yeah.
What it is this particular fly line has a braided core on the inside. My friend Jason Randall showed me how to do this when I fished with him out on the driftless last year, and what you do is with this braided core, it kind of opens up almost like Chinese handcuffs, and so you take a very, very fine needle and shove it up into the braid to kind of open that braid up, hollow it out a little bit, and then you very, very carefully take that 4X mono and shove it up in there. It'll drive you crackers doing this. Use magnification, lots of light, and then once it's up in there, you take some super glue and just roll it. And every so often, I need to do it again. I'll give this another coating of super glue. Now, you're not going to go out and catch tarpon with this thing.
No, you are not.
And it's, it's a little scary, but it's held up for me for a while. And again, you don't have to go this far. I mean, a nail knot. Okay, it's you can get by.
But that really is the ultimate, because you're obviously going to have that leader into the guides.
Right.
And that is that knotless connection. Well, that's a connection that we are familiar with, and Dave showed us that in the 90s.
And he has that little kit. I think it's still for sale that you can get on how to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It came with an instruction booklet. It came with the needles and this little pin vise.
Right.
So we need to revisit that, because that is an ultimate connection for almost any freshwater fishing, to be honest with you. And the way Dave did it, there's a variety of different ways that you can do it. What he did was went ahead and just pulled the needle all the way through. But again, you're dealing with something that's so small, so thin, much thinner than the typical tip of a standard weight forward line. So that's going to be pretty tedious, but that's awesome. I mean, a completely knotless connection is going to go through the guides, shall I say, like butter.
Like butter.
Yeah. So in this method, Tim, there are no strike indicators.
No, it's a sighter.
Yeah. And there is no split shot.
Split shot is a no-no in international competition, and that is kind of that. I mean, there's nothing that says, depending on stream regulations, of course, but there's nothing that says I can't use split shot. It's just that I've kind of kept with that competition rules, and so I'm using, many heavily weighted flies, and most of them are tied on jig hooks. And again, it's international competition. It's strict. There are time limits, everything like that. Any advantage that they can get helps them out. And so things like jig hooks with slotted tungsten beads, they don't foul on the bottom quite as much. That's the real advantage to them. It's not it's not that they ride horizontally, because they really don't. It's just that they don't foul as much on the bottom, and but they are more expensive and everything else. So you can use standard nymphs if you want. I do all the time as well, but a lot of these are jigs. And we talked about rigging earlier. I do like to have a weighted fly, anchor or point fly, and depending on the situation, I'll either tie some tippet off the bend of that hook and 18, 20 inches back to usually a smaller unweighted fly.
That's exactly what I do.
Leave some natural movement in there. This is the descent vehicle. That's what gets the whole rig down to where the trout generally are, within a foot of the bottom for most of the year. And so we need that, and think of it as a split shot with a really bad attitude. Okay, it's got a hook in it. It could hook a fish, and often does, but allows you to do that. There are other options for rigging. A lot of people like the anchor fly on the bottom, and to have like a 6 to 8 inch tag up here and run the weightless fly smaller up off that tag. There's also, it comes from bass fishing. It's called drop shotting, where you have a split shot on the bottom, and you can have 1 or 2 tags up here. Very effective system. Split shot, if it gets caught on the bottom, you just give it a pull and the split shot comes off. You've got both flies all rigged. You clamp on another split shot, you're good to go.
Sure.
So, and that way you get 2 weightless, neutrally buoyant flies going for you.
Man, there's some neat flies. Oops, you missed a couple spots.
Yeah, well, I've been fishing a little bit, so.
This could not be a more full box.
And that's one of about 4.
I'm never going to show anybody my fly boxes after this. Wow, that's some neat stuff in there.
Well, and a lot of those are test patterns. I'm still they're not not ready for prime time, but
but still, there's some amazing looking bugs in there. That's pretty neat, friends, to be able to see one of the Euro boxes of Tim Flagler. So 1 flies, 2 flies, just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and I do different things. If I'm guiding, for instance, I like the rig where I have the weighted fly, and then I have the trailer coming off the back. And the reason is I can have somebody fishing, and I'll just fish them with that jig. They start off with a jig. They're fishing. I use uni knots. So I can tie on a fly while they're still fishing. I'm guiding, tie on the fly. On the other end, I tie a uni knot loop that closes down real easy. I can say, okay, at the end of this drift, hand me your rig. I can grab their rig, take that loop, put it on that fly, pull it tight, throw it in the water, and they're back to fishing in an instant.
In seconds.
Yeah, and so in a situation like that, to me, that's much more functional than having something with a tag that comes off of it.
I've never been a fan of the tags.
Yeah, I like them. When I'm fishing them, but a lot of times, it's easier and quicker to rig.
They tangle for a lot of folks if you're not careful with your casting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's I'm glad you showed us that rig, and that just couldn't be easier. I mean, it's 10 foot of 4X cider material. Of course, you can pick the cider material. They make it in 2 colors. They make it in 3 colors. They've got black and white, and they've got black or white. Whatever you can see better. And again, your reason for using it is when it gets wrapped around the tip of the rod.
Which happens a lot.
You can see it a lot better.
Yeah.
And then to a tippet ring, and then you're going 10 foot of very fine tippet down to your point fly, and if you're running a second fly off the bend of the hook. That makes that super easy. And I own some of the gear, and I know just enough about this to be able to talk to customers about the basics, but at some point I've got to say, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm American. Let me get you to Ryan.
He knows this stuff.
Ryan Ratliff. Ryan knows this stuff inside and out, and a couple of other folks that work here. But so anyways, just kind of a primer on Euro Nymphing, which we did not get to do from the river because we had to rush home and build a fire in the fireplace
to warm up
after day. But we'd also like to point out that if you are interested in Euro Nymphing and learning a lot more about this, a good friend, Josh Miller, has just put out a book through Stackpole Books called Euro Nymphing. It's tips, tactics, and techniques. I'm about halfway through the book. In fact, I read part of it on my trip this past weekend. And he has put together just a really concise guidebook.
It is. It's not a long read. I mean, I think it's right around 200 pages. And Josh is coach of the U.S. youth team and has coached and his guides in western to central Pennsylvania, does steelhead guiding up on Erie, up on those tributaries. And just, I've known Josh for many years now. Wealth of information. It's straightforward. There are not a whole lot of departures.
No, and there's not a bunch of junk in here.
Yeah, and he brings a lot of the information that he's gained through international competition to us mere mortals, if you will, and presents it in a real clear, concise way.
Yeah, I was really excited to have this, and Josh, thank you. You're going to help a lot of people with this, and mostly you're going to help me help my customers better because I can better serve you. But this was a great step for me, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It was cool to watch you. I stood behind you a few times and just kind of watched what you were doing, and
little.
Yep, and I learned a lot just by watching you on the river today. So we really appreciate it. So once again, friends, Tim Flagler, Tightline Video on YouTube. Can't thank you enough, man.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. That was a lot of fun today.
Always a pleasure to be with you. I look forward to our next visit. We'd love to have you back in the fall, and let's go fishing when there isn't gale. There was literally a gale warning.
Yeah, there were high wind warnings.
High wind warnings here in Ohio today. and absolutely unbelievable. So, well, as always, friends, we appreciate you being here. If you ever have any questions about any of the videos that we make here on YouTube, please pick up the phone and give us a call or shoot us an email here at the shop. We are always happy to help. In fact, here at Mad River Outfitters, customer service is what we do for a living. Fly fishing is what we love and what we sell. So thanks as always. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that like button. It makes us feel good. And stay tuned. Oh, and be sure to watch this video, then watch that video. And you probably see this guy because at this point he's become darn near a regular. So thanks again to Tim Flagler. Check him out at Tightline Video on YouTube. And stay tuned. We've got a lot more fly fishing content coming your way.